Hey everyone, Carolyn here. I'm joined by Josh, a producer on Spartacus Legends. So Josh, what are we looking at here?
Well, yeah, so today we're showing Spartacus Legends, which is a fighting game based on the license on the show Spartacus from Stars Network.
So, okay, so the idea is, you actually play as a gladiator, kind of fighting through the grueling gladiatorial battles of Spartacus?
So you do get to fight as the gladiators, but we actually take a step back. You are the Lanista, so you sort of own this house of gladiators. So you can see here on the screen right now, I've got a bunch of different gladiators. These are essentially slaves that I own, that I've trained to become gladiators. And all these are guys that I've sort of bought and raised from nothing up and to become gladiators. So I get to choose which of my gladiators I'm sending into these different fights, and then I play as them during the fight.
Okay. Now, I'm not a history expert, but I understand that in actual gladiatorial battles, people sometimes died. Is it possible in these gladiators that you've kind of built up? I mean, do they die? What happens if you lose? How does that work?
They do, right? So in the world and sort of the fiction, and actually a little bit of the history, but following closely the fiction of the show, the gladiators are almost sort of a currency that you use to become famous, right? So you sort of send these gladiators off to fight. So in the game, we replicate that feeling, and it's just got this really cool effect of your gladiators can die, so you can actually get executed in this game. So what we've done is we've taken, added a little bit to the standard fighting. You know, we've got things like health and defense, but we've also got the crowd, which is something that you can control, sort of. So when you're pulling off big combos and gaining a lot of favor with the crowd, if you then win, they'll chant for the death, and actually you get to kill your opponent.
All right, let's take a look at some of the fighting action here.
Sure, so I'm going through the gladiators that I have. I'm going to pick one of these guys, which will let me customize them.
Okay.
This is where I can go through. I can choose what kind of weapons he uses, what kind of armor he's wearing, his helmet. You can see they've all got different stats, and that you can sort of customize the way that you like to play. Maybe more defensive, maybe it's more offensive. It's totally up to the player to pick. I can even go so far as to customize what kind of execution I'll do if I win a match.
Wow. And so do the gladiators themselves have, like, they have attributes that make them better suited for maybe one type of weapon or play style?
They do. So every gladiator knows how to use one specific weapon style. All of our weapon styles control completely differently. They've got their own combos, their own play style, and some pros and cons. So you can sort of try them all, and then you can usually gravitate to a few that you really like to play as. In here, once you've got your gladiator, you can see he's got some stats here and a rating, which is how we sort of sum up his overall power. Gladiators also have perks, which are sort of these unique talents. They're sometimes passive boosts, but things that make him special and a little bit better than the average gladiator. These are important because when we talk about a gladiator dying, if I were to get executed, I would lose this gladiator. I'd have to go back to the slave market, buy a new slave. The good thing is I get to keep the gear, right? I've already paid for the gear. I can take that with me and put it on the next guy.
Just take it right off his corpse, and yeah, a little used, but next gladiator won't mind. Yeah, exactly. Good as new.
But you would lose the perks, right? So then you'd have to spend the time to basically earn the new perks for the new guy.
So kind of, I mean, certainly you're taking a risk then in some ways when you maybe put one of your seasoned gladiators into battle, because it's possible that you could end up kind of losing that character and the skills and stuff that they've built up over time?
That's right. So what we do to allow the player to choose is all of our different arenas have a different, what we call lethality, or how likely you are, how lethal is it? How likely are you to die? So when you're playing, you can actually choose how much risk you want to take. If you play in somewhere like the training yard or the ludus, which is the first area, it's really safe. You're probably not going to die. You're not going to get executed there. But if you wanted to go to some place like the pits, which is the underground fighting area, or even the Coliseum where we are now, it's very likely that if you lose, you're going to get executed unless you play really, really well.
I like the headgear on these guys.
Yeah, so the fighting, we've got, you'll see a couple different things happening here. This goes into slow-mo when we've got some close attacks. You'll see we've got things like parrying, there'll be some evading. We've got a full set of combos. It'd be pretty familiar if you're playing a lot of fighting games. You'll see the screen is probably UI is pretty familiar. You've got your health bar. The blue bar below that is your defense. Oh, I just lost that one pretty bad. I better step up my game. The defense is important. If I block or I roll, that's going to take away from it.
Sure.
Of course, that'll fill up if I'm not blocking.
Right.
You just pull up a critical attack on me there.
Oh, man.
Oh, no! Yeah. It's not going well. Let's see if I can pull back from this one.
Oh, no!
So all the guys have basically a second win, so there's 2 health bars they'll go through. Oh.
Oh my God! Ow!
He's taunting me there. It's just bad news for me. So you can see here the different weapon styles. So I've got those swords. This guy's got the polearm. We've got 8 different weapon styles you can play as. Oh, and I lost.
Oh no! Thanks for your service. Yeah.
So now as a player, I have the option of I can accept my loss. I can go back and buy a new slave and train him up again.
Yeah.
Or I can spend some money in the game to revive this guy and bring him back.
Okay.
It's one of the things where early on we give you a life. Obviously, it's sort of an easy ramp into it.
Sure.
But eventually, if the same guy keeps dying, it's going to get really expensive. When he gets beaten up more and more and more over time, it's more expensive to bring him back.
Okay.
So when I win, well, in this case, I lost, but I still did pretty good, and I got some crowd favor on my side, so I get some money. I get some fame, which is what we call XP, basically, or experience. As I become more famous, I get access to better weapons, but stronger slaves who are better and bigger fighters, and more unique and sort of exciting equipment. And then I can spend my silver on that equipment. So if we go back here, I can show you some of the other areas. If you're familiar with the show, again, we've got all the arenas from the show in here, everywhere from the Coliseum, of course. We've got the Ludus in the beginning. And we actually worked with the people, the creative teams at STARS, and took the blueprints they used to build the sets of the show and actually replicated them in the game. So if you've watched the show and you play the game, it'll feel very familiar.
Cool. So when can people play Spartacus Legends, and on what platforms?
So it's going to be available summer 2013. It's going to be available on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network, and it's going to be free to play.
Oh wow. Okay. But will it be pay to win?
It will not be pay to win. So because it's a fighting game, one of the most important things for us was capturing that skill element. So we've had some pretty experienced people here on the dev team playing, and although the gear is important and you level up your character and get better gear, obviously, it ultimately comes down to who's the better player at the end of the day. So most of the things that you're buying in the game will let you go a little faster, maybe catch up your friends. It's really up to you to choose the play style that works for you.
Excellent, Josh. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.